Hello, everyone. Thank you for watching this webinar, this pre-recorded webinar with Michael Hughes and myself, Karen Enfield. I am dialing in today from Belgium. I am from the Netherlands, but I live in Belgium. And it's just a real pleasure to be here today with you, Michael. And perhaps, Michael, you'd like to introduce yourself a little bit, and then maybe you can ask me to introduce me.
Okay. So my name is Michael Hughes, and I'm in Wollongong, Australia, which is about 80 kilometres south of Sydney on the coast, beautiful part of the world. And so I'd like to obviously welcome you all to watching this video. So let me see, and there's other things, yes. So both Karen and I are World Childless Week ambassadors. And I'm also part of 1/3 of a podcast and called Full Stop, and 1/2 of a childless marriage. And we went along the fertility line back in our late 30s, mid 30s. No, we didn't. Sorry. We spent about a decade on the whole gamut of treatments, with the last 5 or 6 years being IVF, and of course that didn't work, and that's why we're here. And so part of me being here is that I felt quite alone in the whole process as we were coming to terms with not having children, and I know I'm not alone with other men, so I choose to try to be a role model for other men, to say, look, it's okay to talk about this. It's okay to grieve, and it's okay to work through that. You don't have to do it alone. And part of that is why we're here today, talking about childless and child-free terms. But that's enough of me talking for now. Karen, introduce yourself, please.
Thank you, Michael. I always love hearing you introduce yourself. It's just so nice to hear your story. And thank you for doing everything that you do also for the male childless community out there. I really appreciate it. And I love listening to the Full Stop podcast. It is always a pleasure to hear the episodes when they come out. And I'm a big fan.
Thank you.
Yeah. So hi again. My name is Karen Enfield, and I'm childless. Not by choice. I became a childless woman 10 years ago at the age of 33 when I was diagnosed with cervical cancer. And part of my treatment for that diagnosis was to undergo a radical hysterectomy, which is a surgical term for the removal of the womb. So I was 33 with a body in bits, and a desire to become a mother, but any options that were left available for me and my husband, I am married, turned out to be a non-option. So after getting over the physical impact of that hysterectomy, I was hit by a rather big mental blow a couple of years after that. And I didn't understand actually what I was feeling, because I was grateful that I was still here, that I survived the cancer. But then I realized after searching online, like, hey, what does it actually mean to not have children? And I found the term childlessness. And I realized when I started reading up about it, I realized, oh my gosh, this is what I'm going through. This is what I'm experiencing. And I realized that I was grieving the loss of motherhood. And I was grieving the fact that I was now a childless person. And like many, I think we'll go into that soon, but like many, I also had an ambivalence towards the term childless. And that's why Michael and I decided, as part of World Childless Week, to talk about the importance of using the right terminology when we talk about our situation of being a non-parent, of not having children, but all that being not by choice or by circumstance. And so we're going to talk about the difference between the terminology child-free and childless today. And I hope you enjoy this recording. Now, Michael and I are coming to this conversation from a cis heterosexual perspective. If you identify differently, or please be aware that we acknowledge any gender identification in this conversation as well. And we want to be as inclusive as we possibly can. But hey, please forgive us if we do make a mistake.
Childless versus child-free. Is there a difference? Now, firstly, I just want to say that we're not actually sort of vying one against the other. That's not the point here. What we want to acknowledge is that these are two very legitimate ways of existing in our world. And so, childless, probably don't need to tell you all what that means, but you know, it could be circumstance, medical, but the point is there is no choice. And from that choice being taken away from you, there is a grief journey because of the loss of the hope of being a parent. And then we have to then manage that grief through our lifetime. And some do it really well. Some need help. But it will be there for a lifetime. And hopefully we can manage that well through that lifetime. Then we look at the other side of that, which is child-free. They have made a conscious choice to not have children, which is their right. So we're not here to bash the child-free, for want of a better word. We're here to say it is a legitimate way of existing in the world. They have exercised their choice. But that doesn't have a grief journey per se with it that we experience, because they have had that choice. And so it's very important that we want you to understand that this is not about one against the other. These are two very legitimate ways of existing in the world.
So why is it important to differentiate? As Michael just explained, the difference between childless and child-free, the delineation is really important. It's because of choice, as you've just heard Michael explain as well. And the term child-free is generally used for those voluntarily decided not to have a child and that they are happy and content with their decision. Now, the term childless describes those who wish to have a child but are not able to for different reasons. And describing child-free people as childless can feel invalidating because it can imply a loss or that they are missing something, and vice versa. And so describing childless people as child-free could be very hurtful and can be a sensitive topic to them. And that's why Michael and I, we are both very strongly convicted about the fact that we really need to start embracing that term childless, not so much as a derogatory term, but really as a term to describe who we are as a demographic in the world, to make ourselves feel seen, to make ourselves feel heard, and to really kind of make a statement also to the world, like, hey, yes, I am childless because I didn't choose to be a non-parent in this world.
Confusing the two terms has repercussions on different levels. So today we want to look at three levels, both from the individual, from the group, and the societal perspective, that it's important to make sure that we are using the correct terms. So from an individual point of view, I'll just briefly say that there's that invalidating the painful experience of being childless by circumstance or choice for an individual. From a group, it perpetuates the invisibility of the childless community and feeds into that sense of shame. And then from a societal level, we get no change because we are still unseen. But we'll dive a little bit deeper into those now.
Yeah, Michael, I love how you just explained those three different levels as well. And, by confusing the two terms, that it really has repercussions. And if you then look at the individual level, the dominant experiences of a childless person is that we've already both said it, it's that they feel unseen, they feel invisible, they feel out of place, misunderstood, feelings of isolation, feelings of loneliness. And I've had that experience myself. I don't know about you, Michael, but I've had the experience that when I was not really owning the right terminology and not actually owning up to the fact that I was grieving my childlessness, I actually developed some mental health issues. I was walking around with feelings of depression. I've suffered 2 burnouts in 5 years' time. And if I look back on that now, it really kind of all kind of falls together with that with the impact on the individual level that this has had on me. How is it for you?
Yeah, look, I would agree. There was a period of time I seem to find this from a male perspective that there's a period of time where you are that rock, that stabilizing factor in a relationship that is difficult because you're trying to deal with the grief of childlessness on your own terms. But for me, as I've got older, and the repercussions of being childless become more apparent. And I think there's also that resilience that we have as young people wanes over time. So here I am at 55, finding that that resilience has waned, and also there are more repercussions of what it means to be childless. Yeah, so I definitely feel that my mental health has been affected by that as well.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So if you look at the next level that you kind of mentioned, Michael, in your the group level of the repercussions of not using the term childless correctly, the impact that has on a group level, as some of the dominant experiences of a childless group is actually the feelings of discomfort of using the term childless. And that they feel the feelings of being undeserving, or feeling heard and feeling seen. We're faced with stigmatization. And what we've also discovered when we were preparing for this, Michael, is that we have a lot of global support groups who do not use the term childless in the group title, which I find very interesting. Understandable. I completely understand where that comes from, because I think that if you step back to that individual level, and those feelings of shame and feelings of being misunderstood and feelings of isolation, but also feelings, it's like, I don't really want to identify as that, because, that means that I have to start embracing the term, which can be daunting. And also, I can imagine that if you say, oh, hey, I've joined this childless group, and if you were open about that to others who are not in that situation, I think it's also maybe a kind of a protection mechanism. But I find it a shame, because I think it kind of feeds also into kind of like poor collaboration between groups. It can feed into not feed, but into, perhaps, Michael. I don't know how you feel about this, but it could even enhance almost like a false sense of being different.
Yeah, look, we had this discussion in what was once called the Clan of Brothers. So Andy Harrod and I, for those who don't know, Andy Harrod and I put together we had this idea a few years ago where we thought, what can we do for childless men? And so we thought, well, let's start a Facebook group, as we do these days. And we did. And we called it the Clan of Brothers. We thought that was a great title, because I'm from the UK. I have Scottish heritage, and I thought, oh, that sort of fits. You know, that clan being that extended family and brothers, because we're all experiencing this together. So I had this image of, like, you know, tough men in kilts and that sort of thing. Won't talk about underwear, but, you know, tough men in kilts.
Please don't.
But unfortunately, what that didn't translate well to people in America, for example, because clan has a totally different context. So we realized we had to change, and we actually went through a really robust decision-making process with the whole group about what are we going to change it to. And there were many, many men who said, I don't want the word childless in it. And the counter argument to that was having a vague name for the group actually put us in this situation in the first place, so to speak. So we took the path of, no, let's make it clear. Let's make this absolutely 100% clear. So we called it the Community of Childless Men. Because when someone looks for childlessness and they search men, childlessness, this is what they will find. And to be quite honest, it's actually been right for me. Owning the term childless has been actually freeing, because I'm now able to talk to my work colleagues, as an example. An example of this is only the other day, Monday, we had our team meeting for work, and we talked about what we do on the weekend. And also, well, I'm doing a lot of stuff for World Childless Week, so I was quite busy on the weekend. And because we've had conversations before about what childlessness means, they're actually quite supportive of me, because they understand what it is. They know that it's that the fact that Michael doesn't have children, even though he and his wife wanted them, and now they live a life where they manage a grief. It doesn't mean that they're sad and lonely people at all. It just means that they carry that burden through their lifespan. So let's give them a bit of a break if we talk about Father's Day, for example. So that no one on our meeting actually mentioned Father's Day on Monday, which was the Sunday before. So I took that as a sign of respect. And I'm going to actually talk to them at a later date and say, you know what, it's okay. You can talk about that. But how good was that? But that only became because they understood that I'm childless, and they know from the way that I talk to them what that means. And I thought that was a really beautiful moment in a group of white middle-aged men.
That's really powerful, Michael. I really thank you for sharing that example. And again, I can't thank you enough for being so open about your status as a childless man. I think it's something to admire. And I also know that it hasn't been an easy journey for you to get there. But I just love that example that you gave, because it really kind of ties into the next level as well, about, you know, how the importance of using the right terminology on a societal level. So where the dominant experiences of childlessness in society is that childlessness itself is not always recognized or understood by society. And there is a difference in a male and female perspective. And I love that you and I are talking today about this together, because you do come to this from a male perspective, and I come to this from a female perspective. And I do know from my own experience, but also from your experience and from how I've got to know you over the years, is that there is actually a difference in that experience. We can talk about that a bit more later. But also within society, the childless demographic is often overlooked in governmental slash organization decision making. It's almost as if we are an invisible demographic. And as a demographic, we are faced with pronatalism, stigmatizations, feeling left out, and not being included in, like I said just now, in decision making. And I do believe that by owning the term childless in the correct way, versus that child-free terminology that so many people often use to describe our demographic, I think it's really important. And like you said, it can really make a difference, not just on a societal level, but also on a group level and on that individual level. And I think, of course, change starts with an individual, but I do also believe in, in the power of numbers. So by people joining up together, become a collective, become a group that speaks out, become a demographic that makes themselves heard, that makes themselves seen, that speak up with pride, and by owning that terminology, by really saying, hey, we are childless.
Yeah, and absolutely.
It's important. And I remember that you shared a statement with me a while back that you said, that if you are not seen, you are not counted. And I think that is just such a strong statement to make, in the sense that it packs a punch for me, because I do believe that to be true.
Oh, absolutely. And what got it for me was that was actually not my slogan, but it was from the recent census that we had. I saw a comment by our new Prime Minister, and yeah, it said, if you're not seen, you're not counted. And so I'll just take a step back to another experience I've had with my work. Now, my work is actually, the company I work for is actually quite progressive in terms of inclusion and diversity. And it actually feels good to be employed by a company like that. Mm. And I had the occasion to talk to a group of people in the company I work for, where I was able to talk about childlessness. And I actually got a few comments back by some people that said, I didn't even know that was a thing. Mm. Now, of course, we live and breathe this, and to hear that was actually really, really powerful for me, because it showed that we are not seen. Now, I get why. I understand why. But the problem with this is that we have child-free people that grab that terminology and they go, I'm child-free. And they're very proud of that. And so they are seen. Childless people don't do that, because as a lot of people say, well, I feel less than. And my argument is that, again, if we educate people about what it means to be childless, we can grab that terminology and say, we are different, we are not child-free, we are childless, and we can be seen. Because one of the things that I see, and sorry, I'm going to get a bit of a rant here, I'm getting a bit of a roll.
Go on.
But one of the things that I see as I've immersed myself into our community is that people are craving change. They are craving for the world to recognise that I am childless, and look, just please understand me. But if we are not seen, then how can we expect that change? I always think about that quote, and whoever, I'm not quite sure who said it, sorry, originally, but it's that, you probably all heard it, but it's the definition of, is it madness? Definition of insanity is doing exactly the same thing every single time, but expecting different results. And that's the way I look at this, is that if we don't change, if we don't get behind something, then nothing will. So that's why, for me, it's important to grab hold of that term and use it for good, if for want of a better way of explaining it. And that's why I say it's actually quite freeing for me, because I have people in my life that understand me. And how good is that? Now, I'm not saying that you have to go out and talk to people, but if you can get behind the word childless, then those who are more forthright, who have that capacity to stand at the front, you give them strength. So yeah, that's where I'm coming from. And I know Karen and I talked about this. I told her a story about Australia, and back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, there was the derogatory term WOG that was used in Australia, WOG. Not exactly sure what it stands for, but if you were from particularly a Mediterranean country, that's what you would get. That's what you would get called, and it was a derogatory term. But let's jump forward 40, 50 years, and now it's almost a cool term, because that part of our society grabbed hold of that word and went, no, you're not having it to make fun of you. You're not having it to denigrate me. I'm taking it as part of who I am, about my identity. So when you look at the Australian culture now, they have taken that word and used it for good, for want of a better way of explaining it. So we had a TV show called Wogs Out of Work, where they went, no, we're having that word and we're going to make it for us. And they made a comedy from it. And now it is almost a term of endearment. Now, some people may disagree with this, and I accept that, but they've said to us, and they've gone, if it wasn't for us, you wouldn't have Italian food. If it wasn't for us, you wouldn't be eating souvlaki. If it wasn't for us, you wouldn't be having good coffee. If it wasn't for us, you wouldn't have lasagna or good spaghetti. And you know what? They're right. And I know that in our community, our childless community, if we grab hold of that word and then we dictate what it means, then we can come to that place too. I'm going to stop for a moment because I'm getting on a bit of a roll and I'm probably repeating myself. But yeah, what do you think of that, Karen?
I have heard you share that story before, and I think it's very powerful that as a demographic indeed is to grab hold. Sorry, my camera just kept dropping up. Sorry about that. I think it's very powerful. I've heard you share that story before, and I think it's very powerful that as a demographic to actually use that term that was initially, like you said, a derogatory term, and to actually turn it around into something positive and really start owning it, and to really make it, to really kind of stand behind that terminology. I think it really packs a punch. And like you said, like we talked about earlier, it again, from an individual, from a group, and from a societal level, it's made a change. It's made a difference. Now, you went off on a roll there a little bit, and I can imagine that there. No, don't apologize, because I think it was a good roll, Michael. But I can imagine that some people listening to the conversation as it unfolds go, well, hold on a minute. But that's different with childless. It's different with child-free. It's different with those terms, because it comes, and that childless comes with it not being a choice, not being a choice to become a non-parent in society. And because we are faced with what we also talked about, excuse me, what we also talked about, pronatalism, the emphasis on families being a cornerstone of society, the emphasis on that having children is the logical next step, that when you meet somebody in life, that you pair up, you get together, and you reproduce. You bring children into this world, and that is kind of still the order, the way things are going. We see it in decision making, governmental decision making. We see it coming back in laws. We see it in HR policies. We see it, advertisement. Anywhere. It's so much focused on that, and I completely understand where that comes from. You mentioned it earlier as well when you were talking about your story about at work, when someone said, I didn't even know that childlessness was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Before I became a childless person, I didn't know childless was a thing. I used terms and I've asked questions. I gave unsolicited advice to people who, I've asked the awkward questions. Whenever I met someone, oh, hey, hi, how are you doing? Do you have kids? And so I went on this learning journey. I went on this, it's been a decade now. So I've needed to educate myself. I've needed to experience the good, the bad, and the ugly that comes with childlessness. But it also comes with a big sense of loss. It comes with a grief journey. And I do believe that it's very important to educate people and to own the term childless, as opposed to identify as child-free, to kind of, no, let me put it this way. Like I said, I don't like to use the term child-free myself because it insinuates that it comes with a choice. Me being a non-parent was not a conscious decision. It wasn't a choice that I made deliberately. So yes, I do identify as childless. But I also understand that that comes with a grief journey, as I just said. And I still think for societal change to happen, Michael, and for people to really understand it, and for people to also kind of accept when I say, oh, hey, I'm childless, not by choice. And, I don't have children for whatever reason, even if I don't explain why, the grief journey that comes with it, I think that's what makes people uncomfortable. I don't think it's the term childless as such. I think that I think it's more what it represents, that it comes with a grief journey, and it makes people feel awkward. It makes people feel uncomfortable, like, ooh, because I've actually had someone say to me, like, oh my gosh, you're living my worst nightmare. So that for me was like, ooh, I have to be careful with how I use this term, because if that's the response I'm getting, that makes me feel even more awkward than actually really using that term. So I had to go through my grief journey and to really kind of feel all the feels that come with it, and heal from the grief that came with my childlessness, with not being able to have children, before I was actually able to start embracing the term and now actually wear it with pride. I had to go through that journey. So I can imagine that someone who's watching this conversation unfold, who might not be where you and I are, or who might still feel, discomfort, or, would even almost prefer to lean towards using the word child-free, because it's slightly more socially acceptable. And I don't say that lightly, because people who identify as child-free and who carry that with pride, who carry that term with pride, they are also faced with similar stigmatizations. They are also faced with comments that are unwanted. They get unsolicited advice. I have child-free friends, and I have childless friends, and I have friends who are parents. And when I had a discussion with a child-free friend of mine recently, she also said to me, "It's like, oh my gosh, I also get these and these comments, like, oh, you'll change your mind, or once you meet someone, you'll speak differently." So she also said that even though child-free seems to gain in popularity, it still also comes with a lot of societal stigmatization. So even though it's important to use the terminology correctly, and in our case, you and I, Michael, we identify as childless, and my friend identifies as child-free. There are similar responses that we do get in society, and I do also believe, again, to come full circle of what I wanted to say, is that for societal change to happen is also for people to actually understand that it's okay to be uncomfortable with something, rather than just to try to brush everything over with the paintbrush of positivity, or like, oh my God, this is fantastic. Well, no, it's okay that sometimes things are not okay, or it's okay that things are uncomfortable, and it's okay actually to acknowledge grief and pain and emotions that come with it.
Most definitely, absolutely, most definitely. And I'd like to say that I totally agree with you when you talk about the child-free also getting certain stigmatization towards them as well. And there's no reason why in the future we as two parts of our greater society can't come together and help each other out. Because there are things that cross over between us. Things like, workplaces is an example that I can think of right now. But I think, again, it's important that we can have these two legitimate ways of living recognised. And I think one of the other reasons why I'm quite passionate about this is because I'm seeing a lot of people now who are identifying as they were childless, and now they've decided, oh no, I'm child-free now. I'm living a child-free life. Now, of course, that is absolutely their prerogative, how they identify themselves. I've got no problem with that. But we're showing this on Moving Forward Day, so the last day. And I guess one of the questions that I want people to walk away with, or from this, that they ask themselves, is that by identifying as childless than child-free, what is it that you are sending a message to the rest of the childless society? Again, I accept that is your right to identify, how you wish. But I think what we're doing is we're setting up we're muddying the waters, and we're not allowing childless people to see role models that they can attach to and say, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Because Michael he's always said he's childless, but he's able to talk about this. He's able to talk to other people about this and educate about this. That's who I want to be. I actually got a message today from a man in the UK who said, "You are my role model because you are helping me." And I must admit there were tears this morning. I'm not too afraid to admit that. But
that's beautiful, Michael.
But that's for me, that's what it's about. It's about making sure that we're setting up all those people that come behind us for a success journey. And that, well, no, success is probably not the right word. That we're setting them up to show that, and I will use a term that I've become familiar with by making another video for World Childless Week, is that grief and childlessness can exist alongside each other through a life. And, you know, and of course, we manage that. Some of us are good and some of us need help. But I think that's important. I think that's important for those coming behind us to know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe that's a bit way of putting it. That it's not about having a success, but it's about saying life can be good at the end of this, you know, not the end, but I'm getting myself confused now. But that's not hard because I'm getting old. But but I think you know where I'm going with this, is that I think I feel I have an obligation to those who come behind us to make sure that they're set up right. And if we muddy the waters, if we flip between one and the other, which is your right, there is a consequence to that. And that's what I want to leave people with. As they move forward from accepting a life without children, be careful how you identify, because it does have those ramifications. Does that make sense, Karen?
I think it does, and I think I understand what you're trying to say. And for me, while listening to you, what came up for me was that. And when you said when you come to the end or come to kind of acceptance, and I noticed some resistance coming up within myself, because for me, I have really had to learn that childlessness will always be a part of me.
Yep.
No matter what phase in life I go through, no matter where what phase in my grief journey I'm at the moment, I'm really comfortable with the fact that I'm childless. And to the outside world, it might actually seem that I'm living a child-free life. That's not how I portray myself, but that's the perception that some people might have of how I live my life. Because also I am comfortable with the grief that I experience around my childlessness. People who know me know that I'm very open. I'm very open also about my grief journey. I've been really open about, you know, I've cried publicly on webinars before, and I am comfortable with my childlessness because I'm also comfortable with the grief that comes with it. So for those two to have a place in my life next to each other, what you've also just described, that makes it for me okay, and again, comfortable is the word that comes up for me, to identify as childless and to go through life as a childless person. Again, like I said, the perception that some people who might not understand the difference between childless and child-free, the perception that they might have about my life is that I'm living a child-free life. So I can understand that when you are in a place where I am now, where you are comfortable with childlessness and with the grief that comes with it, that like you said, the waters get muddied, because it is, oh, actually, am I now child-free? And for me, that is something that will never be something I would be saying about myself. Because again, what we said at the beginning of this is that there is a difference in the terminology. Being child-free implies that it's a deliberate choice to not have children, to not be a parent, and that you are okay with that, despite the stigmatization and the commentary and the societal pressure that you are still faced with, as childless people are. However, I've gone through an incredible grief journey that came with childlessness. So for me, I would not identify myself ever as child-free, because I am embracing the fact that childlessness will always be a part of me. And what I'm also learning is that I am more than my childlessness. Yes, I'm Karen. Yes, I'm childless, but I'm also so much more than that. And as so that has been for me really instrumental in my grief journey. So as I think is there is a danger in shifting from childless to child-free. I think the danger with that is that people can actually deny themselves the grief that comes with childlessness. And I truly believe that it is so important to actually work through the grief of childlessness to come to a place of comfort, and to come to a place of being comfortable with embracing the term childless. That's where I'm at with that.
It's always lovely spending time with you, because you always bring a different perspective. I can't wait till I get into Europe one day so we can sit down and talk more.
Oh, me neither, Michael. Absolutely, and yeah, and I love that you do want to take let people walk away from this with that question in mind, and I, having talked about all of this today with you, Michael, I just want to reiterate once again, though, that I am perfectly fine with both terms, with childless and child-free. I think it's wonderful for people who actually are, so clear about their decision making that I choose to live a child-free life. Absolutely fantastic. I also think it's absolutely fantastic when people who are living a childless life are able to get to that point in their journey where they say, you know what, I'm embracing this term childless as well, because I'm living a fantastic life. It sometimes hurts, but I'm still living my life to the fullest. And of course the same goes for people who are parents, for people who are in the non-parent demographic, and I think it's important. And I would love to hear back also from people. I don't know about you, Michael, but I'd love to hear back from people who've been watching this, what their thoughts are on this, because I think it's good to have that dialogue. And so if anybody does have any questions for either Michael or for myself, please feel free to send them to us by email. At the end of this webinar, you will find all the contact details on how to reach out to us. So please don't hesitate to email us. We would love to continue this conversation together. Michael and I are curious people. We are eager to keep learning, and we are eager also to get connected with you. So please feel free to reach out to either Michael or myself about this topic, and let us know what your thoughts are. Michael, I can't wait for next time to talk to you again about another interesting, intriguing topic. Who knows what the next one might be?
That's right. So yeah, as I said, I love spending time with you, Karen. You're a great advocate for our community, and for those who want to continue the conversation, I would imagine that on the social media where this From World Childless Week push out, there will obviously you can leave comments. This will also sit on my YouTube channel, because that's the way that World Childless Week will access it. So you can leave comments there, and we will definitely put all our contact details in a slide at the end of this when I've done a bit of editing. So yeah, please feel free to reach out.
And thank you, Michael, for having this conversation with me. Thank you for this initiative. A big thanks also to Stephanie Phillips, who is the founder of World Childless Week, and all the hard work that she's put into this. Steph, you're a rock star. Nothing but praise for you, girl. And to everybody who's contributed as well, thank you so much. And thank you for having watched this recording today. Mike and I are very grateful, and we look forward to hearing from you. And I'm sure we'll see you around. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.